So, good evening and welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. I think at 7 p.m. in the evening, and to learn something new. So, before we begin, hello Valentino. So, before we begin, let me just highlight few points. One is that you get to participate in today's event. We have kept a 15 minutes window at the end of the session for the Q&A part. So you can put up your question at the end of the session. Also, if anyone is using the older version of Zoom app, I would recommend you updating that so that you get to access the polling question that's not available in the previous version. So please do that. Now, let me introduce you all to today's speaker, who is Anish Mody. He also happens to be VP in engineering at Ajackus, partner and VP engineering at Ajackus, and has over 21 years of experience in the industry. So he'll be the one who will be taking up today's event. Please feel free to ask any questions with him. And I hope you all have a good time and learn something new today. Anish, over to you. You can take it up from here.
Sure. Thank you, Avinash. And hi, everyone. A big hello and a warm welcome to everyone. First of all, thank you so much for taking out time and being a part of this webinar on a Thursday evening. So I'll just give you a quick introduction about myself. My name is Anish Mody. I work as the partner and VP of engineering with Ajackus. I have around 21 years of experience into the IT industry, and currently working with Ajackus and being a part of this wonderful journey. So today we are going to talk about an interesting topic called constructive criticism. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay. Today we are going to cover different topics and different aspects of constructive criticism. So before we go deep into the topic, let's just quickly have a look at the agenda. What are we going to cover? So if you look at the agenda, we are going to see what is constructive criticism, the differentiation between constructive criticism and destructive criticism, the benefits of constructive criticism, tips for giving criticism, tips for taking criticism, and most importantly, how we can improve retention through constructive feedback. Before we go deep into the professional side of constructive criticism, let me draw an analogy and let me take all of you back to our childhood. Now, this might look like a funny picture or a cartoon, but before we go into the professional side of constructive criticism, let's go back. Let's think about our childhood, and let's see how constructive criticism has always been a part of our life. So here, if you see, if you try to resonate this slide, and if you try to think about our childhood, when we were kids, we always, many a times we used to make mistakes, or we used to not follow protocols, or we used to not follow orders. So if you remember at that point of time, our parents, they immediately used to come into picture. They used to provide us feedback. They used to, let us know where we are falling behind. They used to give us, those action items, those steps, so that we don't make the mistakes again and again. And they used to do all of this with a lot of compassion, not to hurt us or not to put us down, but with an intention that we don't commit the same mistakes again and we improve. So I think we all have been part of this constructive criticism right from our childhood, even before we started school, college, or before we started our professional lives. Now, even in the other way around, it is not only that we are always on the receiving side of constructive criticism. I think even as parents, we are also on the giving side of constructive criticism. So we might have seen, even those who are parents, a lot of times, we provide a lot of, feedback to our kids. Whenever they do something wrong, or whenever they don't follow protocol, they don't follow orders, or they are lacking behind, or they don't behave properly. So at that time, we become, the giver of constructive criticism, and we explain them what, where they are falling behind, not with the intention to hurt them, but the intention that, they improve and then they don't commit the same mistakes again and again. So just to draw this analogy, we are already a part of this cycle of constructive criticism in terms of giving and taking constructive criticism in our life. But it's not only restricted to our life. The same philosophy can also be implemented in a professional life. So that's what we are going to discuss now. So I will just move on to the next topic. So before we dive too much into the topic, let us understand what is constructive criticism. So as I have mentioned, constructive criticism basically focuses on providing constructive feedback, a feedback which is supported with examples. So it is not just a criticism which is very generic or which is very vague. In constructive criticism, there are certain steps to be followed. There are significant recommendations, something which you can put to action, and something which has a valuable output at the end. The most important point of constructive criticism is that it is performed with a compassionate attitude. I think the entire ethos of constructive criticism is the attitude, is the mindset with which we give criticism to the opposite person. So I think that is what we mean by constructive criticism. Now, here, if you see, there is a very thin line of distinction between constructive criticism and destructive criticism. Now, as managers, as leaders, or as team members, it is very important for us to understand, what is this thin line of differentiation. Okay, a lot of times, like, as let's say as managers, we provide feedback, or we provide, when we are talking to our subordinates or to our reportees, a lot of time we just provide feedback without understanding the intention and the compassion part of it. So I think it is very important for all of us to understand, like, how, with the use of language, or how, with the right mindset, there is a difference between being constructive and being destructive. So let's quickly go through the definitions and understand, like, what is the difference between both types of criticism. So as I mentioned, with constructive criticism, the whole idea is, you are coming up with a helpful attitude. You are compassionate towards the opposite person. Whereas with destructive criticism, the entire intention is to hurt the opposite person, or to put that person down, or to insult that person. Okay. Now, again, with constructive criticism, yeah, the intention is to help or improve the opposite person, to the person whom you are providing criticism. Whereas with destructive criticism, again, the intention is to hurt someone, or, like, put someone down. With constructive criticism, again, the idea is to focus on the gaps and the shortcomings of the person. Whereas with destructive criticism, it is more about the person, like, why have you done something wrong? It's not about the creation. Again, with constructive criticism, it is more about improvement. It is more about suggestions. It is more about clear, actionable plans. It is more about, like, how we can take ourselves, or the opposite person, how he can understand, like, where they have gone wrong, and how they can take specific steps to move ahead. Whereas with destructive criticism, it is again more about being vague, being non-specific, or it's more about being, a critic in a negative way, or in a toxic way, which can easily, put opposite person down. So I think this distinction is very important. We all, as managers, as team leaders, I think we all, before even we talk to our reportees, or before even we get into this environment of criticism, it is very important that we understand what is the difference, because this difference is very important for us to understand. Because by use of certain language, or by use of certain tone, you can immediately focus your criticism, from a constructive criticism to a destructive criticism. So this distinction is very, very important. Now, moving on to the next topic. So yeah, now, as we all understood what is constructive criticism and what is the difference between constructive criticism and destructive criticism, let us understand the benefits of constructive criticism. Okay. I think before that, let's do a poll. Let's see, let's have a quick poll and see, when did you last, receive any kind of, any kind of criticism. So I'll just start the poll. I'll just tell you. Okay, so I'll just launch the poll. So the question is, can you describe a time when your work was criticized, with different options? Let's see. Okay, I hope you guys can see the poll. Okay, so I can see, okay. So I can see all different time frames. I mean, many of you, like 20% of you got feedback in last week, 20% got in last month, 20% got in last 3 months, 13% got in last 6 months, 19% got in last 1 year, and 13%, okay, you never got a feedback. Okay, that's kind of strange. Yeah, so I mean, that's what I was trying to convey. Why did I had this poll is because I think at every point of time, in our life or in our personal career or in our professional career, criticism is something that is always going to be a part of that, whether we are on the giving side or whether we are on the receiving side. It can happen in last 1 week, in last 1 year, in last 10 years, but yeah, it is definitely going to happen. So it is very important for us to understand, the mentality and, the mindset behind constructive criticism. So now let's go through the benefits of constructive criticism. So here, if we see, most importantly, it helps us to give a new perspective. So, a lot of times we see, like, many people, they overlook a lot of things, like, they neglect a lot of things, or like, they have that, laid back attitude. So what happens in this case, when we provide constructive criticism, to such peers or to such team members, it can help them give an entire new outlook, to an issue. So what happens is this helps to increase their insight and also give them a different perspective. So I'll just give you a quick example. Let's say I'll just give you my own example. This is way back, I think, in the year 2000. When I was into development, when I was actually doing coding. So I remember, during that point of time when I was new to coding, I was new to development. I think somewhere in September 2020. So whenever I used to code, like, whenever I used to write functions, so basically I'm talking about like VB, like, VB6 and ASP and all. So, I always used to, forget writing an error handler. Now you all know what is an error handler. But I always used to think, like, why do I have to write an error handler? Like, if I'm writing a function and if I know, like, 1 + 1 is 2, then I'm never going to be wrong, right? I don't need an error handler. So I used to somehow overlook that. What happened is, during code reviews, my manager, he was a real smart guy. So he figured out, like, twice or thrice I was doing the same mistake. I was like, just overlooking that. So then he had a meeting with me. We had like an one-to-one meeting wherein he made me understood what is the thing that I'm missing. So he gave me very simple examples, like, what are the disadvantages of, not using an error handler, or what can happen if I don't use an error handler. So he explained it to me in such a positive way. He didn't blame me. He didn't say that, hey, why aren't you using a typical protocol, or why aren't you doing this, or why aren't you doing that? So rather than blaming me, he first focused on where I was going wrong, and then he focused on, giving me a new perspective, that if you do it the right way, then this is what you are going to gain. So somehow I so liked the way, he presented the whole thing to me. He explained to me, and that's where this idea of, constructive criticism, somewhere it went so deep within me, because I was really moved and touched by the way, he explained me my mistakes. And that was a really good example for me, in my real life. So yeah, so as I coming back to the point, the benefit of constructive criticism, it definitely helps you to, like, increase your insight and also, get a better, perspective. Okay, creates bonds. I think, again, very important. So again, coming back, let's say, to my example, and maybe I can relate this to anyone. It's like, we feel so good when a manager, let's say, reaches to us. Like, he would reach out to us. He would let's say he would talk to us, he would explain us where are we going wrong, or like where there are gaps, where there are like shortcomings. So you quickly resonate to that person, right? You quickly catch on to the to the wavelength of that person, and you create a very strong bond and a rapport with that person. And you always think that it's not only me, but my manager is equally invested, or it's equally interested in my future. Or else the why would a manager care, like for small things? But if he is taking care of all these small things that I am missing out, that means definitely the manager has some interest in my future, and he's really looking forward that I conduct myself in the right way, I don't make mistakes. So I think somewhere we all go through this, and we all see like people who are helpful to us and who provides us positive feedback. We definitely connect to them. We create this bond with them. It's a very psychological thing. So definitely constructive criticism, it helps us to create that bond. Cultivates a trustworthy workplace. Again, I think once you create that bond, somewhere you start trusting your manager, somewhere you start trusting the organization. You feel that there is a lot of transparency. It's there's no politics involved. Basically, it's not that someone is talking something to you, and then on the back that person is talking something else. So with constructive criticism, this shadowness just goes away, and it helps you to cultivate this trustworthy workplace, wherein you feel that the entire atmosphere is positive. People understand where you are going wrong, and the managers are too open to come and reach out to you and provide you the feedback. So overall, for the entire organization, it's not only between a manager and a person, or a manager and a reporting, but I think even from the entire organization point of view, the constructive criticism is going to create that that trustworthy environment between all of us. Okay, cool. So yeah, look at this guy, what he's trying to say. I mean, see, if you look at him, he looks so content. He looks so confident. He looks so calm. And then obviously he wants to say like, I like the way you offer constructive criticism, boy. Now, same thing. Assume that this guy would have received a destructive criticism, then definitely he won't be like this. Like his face might frown, or he might be really like angry, or he might be unhappy. But here it's the swag way of like telling that, hey, I'm really happy with the way you provided your constructive criticism to me. So again, this is just a picture, but yeah, it definitely helps. It brings out that that confidence, that that contentment, and that satisfaction when someone receives constructive criticism. Okay, so now, since we all understand what is constructive criticism, what is the difference between constructive criticism and destructive criticism, what are the benefits of constructive criticism, it's time to understand how to give constructive criticism. So see, I mean, all of these points are very much interlinked to each other, right? It's not just about understanding something. Most important is about how you understand something, and then how you execute that, right? Now, how you put that into action. So right now we understood the concept. Now it is important for all of us to understand how to put this into action. Like, what are the tips that we can use for giving constructive criticism? So move forward. If you see in again, in professional life or in our personal life, whenever we are having a feedback, or whenever we are giving criticism, these words like should and should not, don't they hurt you sometimes when people come and say that, hey, you should have not done this, or like, hey, you should have not released this build today, or hey, you should have done this coding in this manner. So that means we are directly putting the opposite person on spot, right? We are directly targeting the opposite person by using these words like should or should not. It's like a very direct attack on the opposite person. So that's something we should avoid. We should not use words like should and should not. Okay. We should communicate in a way wherein we are providing actions, and those actions can lead to results. And we should communicate in a way wherein we are also a part, of this entire exercise. It is not only about giving criticism and letting the opposite person know. It's not a one-sided action. I think it's a mutual, it's a symbiotic action, wherein it's all about going together. It's all about moving forward together. So it is very important that we use such phrases like, moving forward together, or let's do it together, and stay away from words like, should and should not. So yeah, before we go ahead more on this, I would also like to tell you, see, it's very important, that what kind of words we are using, like how are we communicating. So a same message can be communicated in different ways, right? It can be communicated in a harder way. It can be communicated in a softer way. So there are different ways of communicating a message. And let us also understand that people also perceive the message in different ways, right? If you give a message to someone in a harsh way, then that person is going to obviously perceive the message in a harsh way. So it's a one-to-one correlation in terms of how you give a message and how you perceive a message. So it is very important that, and as I said, the entire ethos of constructive criticism is to be compassionate. It is very important that we are compassionate, with the opposite person. And when we are compassionate, we are obviously going to give the feedback in a positive and in a subtle manner. And that's how the opposite person is going to perceive it. So it is very important that as a team, we go forward together and we move forward together. Okay. Again, very important. Focusing on how and not on why. Uh, you might have seen a lot of times, whenever there is a debate or any feedback. A typical feedback would be, hey, why did you do this? Why are you not attending the meetings on time, or why didn't you put this in a particular way, or why were you not available? These whys, sometimes they really hurt the opposite person. It's like you are continuously questioning the opposite person. You're not talking about the problem. Your focus is just to put the opposite person down with, like, tons of whys, like why this, why that, and all. And the opposite person is just going to answer and react. He's just going to think about answering the whys rather than thinking about the problem. And this happens all the time. I think this happened, like, multiple times. So it is very important, rather than focusing on the why, we focus on how. So for example, rather than telling someone that why were you late, or like why didn't you code this in a specific manner, it is important we talk to him in a way in terms of how, like how can we code this in a better way, or how can we ensure that you are always going to be on time. So I think this is a very small point, but it's a very important point, that the focus should not be on the person. The focus should be on the shortcomings of the person. It's not about an individual. Like, we are not targeting an individual. We are targeting the shortcomings of the individual. We are targeting the gaps, that are being brought down by that individual. So it is very important that we focus on how. How can we improvise? How can we be better? How can we do better things? And not just talk about why are you bad, why are you sad, or whatever it is. I think why really won't help. How is definitely going to help. Okay, personalize and depersonalize. Again, it's more about the use of words. So as I had mentioned previously, it all depends, upon your tone, upon the use of words. Even in our personal life, like whenever we have a feedback, or whenever we are talking to someone, don't we feel good when the opposite person is using a more subtle tone, or is giving us feedback in a more positive manner, rather than just like venting it out, or getting angry, or like frustrated on us. So it's a very human psychological behavior, wherein we all want to receive feedback in terms of, in a very subtle way, in a very positive way. And how that can happen is by choosing the right words. So for example, here, as I have mentioned, rather than choosing you, we should always choose I. For example, rather than saying that you could have done this better, or you could have done this in a different way, or you were not nice, it's better that instead of putting it on the opposite person, you refer it to yourself. So you can always say that I could have done this in a different way. I could have reacted this in a different way. I could have used a different code. I could have used a different library. So see here, it's the same message, but you're not directing it towards the opposite person. You're not making the opposite person feel bad. You are taking it upon you in a positive way. So rather than using the word you are using the word I. You are putting yourself on the spot and giving a positive feedback. So again, these are very minute points, but when we take care of these points in a real life scenario, it definitely turns the table. The entire perspective, it changes. People definitely perceive this, in the right way. So the use of language, the use of words, that really matters a lot. Okay, listen again, very important. So I have seen many. I have been to many feedback sessions, and I have always seen it's always like a one-sided ratio. It's like the person who is giving the feedback. He will just keep on blabbering. He just keep on talking, and the opposite person is the person who will always be quiet. He will never get a chance to speak. That's what generally happens a lot of times. It's all about complaints, why you did this, why you did that. The person giving the criticism is just not ready to listen. He has like piles of things to throw upon the opposite person. But then that is a one-sided criticism. That is such skewed towards one side, right? It's just about me. It's like I am hurt and I'm just going to vent it out. But that's not the way it should happen, right? I mean, I would not call that as a feedback or a criticism. That's like a one-way traffic. It's more of venting out rather than criticism. So it is very important that the person who is giving criticism, he is ready to listen. So before you want to tell something, it's important you listen to the opposite person, right? You understand where their pain points are. You understand where are the shortcomings. You understand what is the opposite person going through. Why is there a reason that we have to give this kind of criticism? There has to be something wrong. So until and unless you don't understand what is going wrong, you can't provide constructive criticism. And that can happen only when you listen, only when you are open to listen, not just when you just want to respond. I think you should first listen. You should understand what is the problem, and then you should respond, with the right way, with the right actions, and with the right improvements. So yeah, listening is very important. Okay, cool. So a nice sandwich over here. Sorry, guys, this sandwich is not to be eaten. This is a different sandwich. So a very nice strategic way of providing criticism. So this is like an industry standard sandwich. Okay. Which is being used by many of us. So in fact, even I use this way of providing criticism. So before we go into this, let me give a very simple analogy or experience. I think a very homely experience that we all might correlate. So let's say let's say someone, or let me give my example for it. Let's say my wife, she really cooks very good food. Okay, I mean, she makes good food, pizza, pastas, whatever, everything she makes good. But somehow yesterday, she let's say she made spaghetti, but that was very salty. Somehow I just didn't like it. Every day she is good, but yeah, yesterday and even day before yesterday, whatever she made, there was a lot of salt in that. Now imagine I go to her and I directly tell her that, hey, yesterday's spaghetti was so salty, I just didn't like it. So you can imagine what is going to happen if I directly talk to her like that. It's not only about me, but let's talk about any particular instance wherein, let's say, I directly tell her that the yesterday's spaghetti was very salty. That would hurt her, or she can be defended, or she can directly tell me something. A better way to take care of this scenario would be wherein I go and talk to her and I say that, hey, you are such a good cook, every in the entire month you make different recipes, every time whatever you cook is excellent. You are like a five-star Michelin chef. I really love your food. So that's where I'm talking about her positive points. And then somewhere after praising her, I tell that, but yesterday and day before yesterday, I thought that, the pastas and spaghettis were a bit salty, but that's okay. Overall, you are wonderful. I mean, it's like the entire month you cook wonderful food. I am happy, kids are happy. But yeah, sometimes it happens. So I mean, if you can just take care of that, I mean, just ensure that the food is not so salty, then I think entire 30 days of the month you would be like a five-star, a Michelin chef. So see how things change. Like, first I spoke in a positive way, I praised her and I told that you are a wonderful cook. And then somewhere I also criticized her, in a nicer way, wherein I said that, the yesterday's food was not good. And then again, I reminded her back that you are a wonderful cook. So this is called a sandwich. So here, if you see, you begin, with some positive comments regarding the situation. Then you give praises. After giving praises, the most important point is give the criticism. Okay, tell about something that went wrong, and then again remind the opposite person of their strong points, and always tell them how can I support you or how can I help you. So this is the industry-wide sandwich that everyone has eaten, but it's a very nice way of providing feedback. Here you are giving the message, you are being positive, and the best part is you are ending this entire thing on a positive note. See, that's the beauty of this sandwich. We can't eat it, but yes, we can obviously execute it. So please take a note of this. I mean, obviously you can Google it and you can learn more about the constructive criticism sandwich. And this is definitely going to be useful for all of you. Again, not necessarily in a professional environment, but even in a real life scenario, because every day we deal with so many people, we deal with our family, we deal with our friends, our colleagues. And yes, criticism and feedback is a part of it. So if we know how to do it, we are always going to be able. Okay. So let's have a quick look at a video, a very nice video wherein we can showcase like how constructive criticism can be given. It's a very short video. It won't take a lot of time. So I'll just quickly play it.
Anish, there is no sound.
Oh, okay. One second.
I guess, Anish, you have to enable like sound share from your system settings, not from here. When you share your screen, there's a like checkbox that says share your audio. Not here, on your Zoom account, actually.
Okay, that's okay. We can play this later. Okay, let's move on to the next point.
कौन से टाइप का ओके था भाई?
Can you see my screen, guys?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, let's move on to the next point. Yeah, and before we go ahead, I think let's take a quick poll. Okay. So this poll is about reasons for criticism. What was the reason of the criticism you received last time? Okay, let me launch this poll. Okay. Wow. Missed the deadline was like 1 to 100% in 1 second. Okay. Okay, I can still see miss the deadline is like 55%. Not communicating properly is 45%. Not being a team player, okay, 0. Not taking initiative, 25%. Underperforming, 17%. Yeah, I anyways expected missing the deadline is like the maximum, reason for criticism. Okay, cool. So yeah, 58% missed the deadline. So yeah, no wonder. Okay, great. So we spoke about giving criticism. So that's just one. That's just one side of the point, right? The other side of the coin is about taking constructive criticism, which I think is very important. See, giving criticism is obviously it is important, but you are on the giving side. You're not on the receiving side. I mean, the receiver is the person who is going to be on the spot, or who might have different emotions, or let's say different reactions. So I think this topic is very important in terms of how can we take constructive criticism. So very first, stop your reaction. So I think we all might have heard, like, there is a difference between to react and to respond. I always feel that we should always respond to situations and not react to situations. Okay, this is a very simple philosophy. I think that we all should follow in our life. Again, not only professionally but also personally and in every different aspects of life. Because when you react, you are just giving an answer to something that has been thrown upon you. You are just answering something. You are just reacting to some situation or to something that was thrown upon you. But when you are responding, you are taking time to analyze the situation. You are taking time to understand the situation, and then you are responding back. So I think it is very important that in a situation wherein you are on the receiving side of criticism, the first thing is don't react. Just stay calm. Stay calm, try not to react because you will get time to respond. So just stay calm. Secondly, I think it is very important to understand the motive behind criticism, right? Behind constructive criticism. It is not that all of a sudden your manager has come to you and he wants to trash you or he wants to bring you down. That would be destructive criticism. But when someone is following up with you, when someone is having a one-to-one with you, or when someone is providing you right feedback, right, action items, so you should understand the mentality behind that, right? The thought process behind that. Why is the opposite person doing this? Like, what is he going to gain? Right? When there are shortcomings on my side, what is the opposite person going to gain by putting in so much time on me? So you should always understand, what is the perception, what is the motivation behind the opposite person to provide you feedback and to provide you constructive criticism. I think that is very important. If you understand the mindset and the temperament of the opposite person, then you exactly know why he's taking these kind of actions, right? Why is he doing that to me? So it's very important to understand the temperament and understand why someone else is taking these kind of actions. Then be a good listener. Again, very important. I think listen is something very important on both the sides. Either if you are giving constructive criticism or if you are taking constructive criticism, it is important that you listen. So again, if you are on the receiving side, if you don't listen, you will not understand what's going on. You will not understand what the opposite person is trying to convey, right? You will not understand what is the feedback, what are the action items. So yeah, it is very important that you be a good listener. You just try to understand what the opposite person is trying to say. Where are your shortcomings? Where are your shortfalls? Where are your gaps? Even if, see, actioning is something different, right? Before you action, you have to first understand. If you don't understand, you are not going to action. You are not going to put that into action. So be a good listener, be calm. You don't need to respond. It's the idea is not to put you on spot or not to harm you or not to insult you or destruct you. The whole idea is to point out the faults, point out the shortcomings, and then provide you constructive feedback and action items that you can actually work upon. So you have to understand that, and you can understand that if you're a good listener. Just listen to what's going on. Once the conversation is over, yes, say thank you. I know maybe you might not be happy, listening to criticism, like, someone telling something about our own faults or our own shortcomings. But let us understand why the opposite person is doing that, right? He is doing that because he wants us to improve. He wants that, we don't commit the same, issues, again and again. So we show that kind of gratitude, like, at least be thankful to the opposite person because he has taken so much time, so much effort to understand our behavior and then providing us feedback. So we show that gratitude and be grateful and thankful to the opposite person who is giving us criticism. Ask questions and get more clarity, again, very important. I have seen a lot of times, in these feedback meetings, it's a very one-sided meeting. So even, let's say, when in my younger days, a lot of times, when I used to, let's say, have a feedback, I used to not ask any questions. I used to just blindly, let's say, listen that, oh, okay, this is where I've gone wrong. Okay, this is what I am supposed to do. Let's say I would make a note. But then when the meeting is over, then I will have thousands of questions. Oh, I didn't ask this. Oh, how should I action this? Oh, this is where I have gone wrong. Or okay, I could have done this in a different way. Or I could have asked you how to do this. So once that time is over, then thousands of questions will come in. So it is very important that we utilize that feedback time, when we are sitting with our manager. That time is limited, but please, when the feedback is over or when the meeting is over, be ready with your questions. If you don't have questions, then obviously there is something wrong. Either we are too intelligent that we understood everything, but then the question is, if we understood everything and if we were so intelligent, this meeting would have never happened, right? There would be no criticism in place. So be calm, be patient, understand what's going on, listen, and start making notes, start taking questions, like, ask questions, like, what are the actionable steps? Ask for examples, ask the opposite person how you could have done this in a different way. Okay, how I can do it in a different way. What are the action items? By when do I need to complete those action items? See, that's where you are able to generate the actual value of constructive criticism. It is not only about listening and, like, and just ending it over there. It is more about actioning, taking those listening into action, and that action can come only when you are clear with what needs to be done, and that clarity can come only when you have questions, when you want to you want to put forward your doubts, or you want to put forward certain questions, or, like, ask for examples from the opposite person. So yeah, please be ready with your questions when you are in this kind of situation. So again, very important tips for taking constructive criticism. Giving something is easy, like, it's like, sorry for using this slang, but it's like gyan. So, like, giving gyan is easy, but taking something is not so easy. You need to develop that attitude. You need to develop that understanding wherein you should be a good receiver. You should be good at receiving feedback and receiving comments from their managers. So very important tips for taking constructive criticism. Okay, now let me talk about retention. I think a very burning topic nowadays. Like, retention. Like, people in organization, we have seen, they join companies, they leave companies. Like, there is a lot of attrition going on nowadays. I think we all are aware, when we all go through the same pain at, like, in all organization and at different roles. This is really bleeding, I think, all of us. Retention, attrition, people not staying, like, moving around from jobs to jobs, and from projects. So let's understand why retention, and how we can stop attrition, how we can have more retention through constructive feedback. So in a survey, we have seen, like, majority of the people, they want to leave their organization because they never received any feedback. They never received any positive feedback. All they received was, let's say, destructive destructive communication, or something wherein, let's say, they were put on spot, or wherein they were questioned. So that is majorly the reason people want to leave, because they feel either that trust factor is broken, or that bond is broken, that positivity, that entire environment is not there. So they feel left out, and they would want to move to different places, or they would want to try different jobs. This is a major reason why people leave an organization. So if we have this culture of constructive feedback, of regular feedback, then we can avoid this. And if we can avoid this, that also means that we have people within organization who would want to stick around, who would want to dedicatedly work for that organization, who would want to be a part of the organization and take the organization to the next level. See, it is very difficult when we have people moving, right? I mean, assume you are working on a project, and every 10 days, there is a new guy coming in, and every 20 days there is someone going out. You will never be able to deliver. Your time will just go into transition, and someone coming in, someone going out. So same thing happens also on an organization level. We will never be able to stabilize ourselves, until and unless the employees feel stable, until we have that plateau wherein everyone is on the same level. Now, how that can be done is again through constructive feedback. Now, there are tips in terms of how this kind of feedback can be given so that we have a good attrition rate. So make feedback timely and specific. I think feedback should not be like once in a blue moon, like in 10 years my manager called me once and gave me positive feedback. That is not going to work. It is important that the entire feedback mechanism is recursive. It should happen in a timely manner, right? I mean, again, even in our life, like something happening once to us might not have a deep impact, but something happening in a repetitive way to us, yes, it will definitely have an impact on us. So I think it's the same philosophy over here. Feedback has to be timely, it has to be specific, on a specific place, on a specific time, and there has to be specific actions. It should not be generic or vague. It should not be like talking too generic that, hey, you could have done this better, or how are we now going to move ahead. These are very, very generic words. Rather than that, be very specific. I think this is a very important point. I think everywhere we have to be very specific in terms of the actions. If we are generic, then that leads to a lot of confusion, a lot of vagueness, ambiguity, because the opposite person will feel something, the person giving the criticism will feel something. So be very specific, never be generic. Again, talking about being generic and specific, if I can give you a simple example, even when we are taking requirements from our clients, sometimes the client would come and say, I want the website to be very good. I want the page to be very attractive. I want the pages to be very intuitive. So this is so generic, right? What do you mean by attractive? Let's say for me, attractive is a website with a blue and a yellow color, for example. But let's say for a client, attractive is something with a black and white color. So with such generic feedback and generic comments, that it leads to misinterpretation. It leads to vagueness, ambiguity, because I am thinking in certain way, the person giving this requirement is thinking in a certain way. So be very specific, be spot on. Like for example, here if I say a very good page, web page or a website, I have to be very specific. But the website has to be blah blah in color. It should have like 10 images. It should have a roller or whatever it is. But be very specific. So even here, be very specific in terms of providing the feedback. Then know your objective. What do you want to accomplish? It is very important that we know why are we giving that feedback. If even when in terms of retention, be sure what is the objective. Why are we talking to the opposite person, right? Because we want to retain him, for example. We want him to be a part of the organization. We don't want him to leave the organization. So your objective has to be very clear. Why are we doing this? Direct your feedback at behavior rather than a person. Again, very, very good point. Uh, don't talk about a person or don't talk about the opposite person. Moreover, talk about the behavior. So if you talk about a good behavior or a positive side of a person, that, and if that person wants to leave the organization, for example, then don't you think he will think 10 times before leaving? He will always think that, hey, this guy talks so good about me. Like, he likes my behavior. He likes, my approach, my temperament. Why am I leaving such a good place? Like, the managers are so good. They always provide me feedback. They always provide me timely feedback. Like, will I get the same kind of feedback in the new organization? Will the managers will be of same, compassion, and, like, have the same kind of, interest in me? See, this is where this really counts. Like, these questions will come up in the mind of an employee who is about to leave. He will feel scared. He'll feel that maybe I might not get something that I'm getting over here right now. Maybe I might not get this kind of attention that I'm getting right now, this kind of feedback that I'm getting right now. So again, very important that we do this. So people who are even thinking of leaving the organization, they will definitely have to think, more than 10 times, because they don't know where they are going, and they know at least, where they are right now, what kind of environment they are into. Then determine how the information can be conveyed. As I said, there are different ways of conveying the information. You can use the sandwich method, or if you have any other pizza method or whatever method you have. But ensure that, you start with the positive approach, then you talk about the criticism, and then again you end in a positive approach. And as I said, you can have your own method, let's say like a burger method or a pizza method, but ensure it is given in the right way. It is given with the right purpose. And okay, most importantly, select an appropriate environment. uh, Imagine your manager giving you feedback in front of 100 people, or in front of a big meeting, or in front of, let's say, board of directors, or let's say when you're in a restaurant, or when you're out, with your family members. Don't we feel, we don't feel like talking, right? Because we are not in the right place, we are not in the right environment. So it is very important that we create that right environment. There has to be a right place. There has to be a right time. There has to be, the right attitude when you want to go into these kind of discussions. So be prepared before, giving feedback, before you want to talk. Let's say talk to an employee, let's say, who's about to leave your organization. Be prepared. When do you want to give this feedback? Like, what would be the place? Maybe I will call him to a restaurant and, like, talk one to one, or maybe I will take him to a meeting room and talk one to one. But I will not talk with him in front of a larger crowd, or I will not talk in with him, when we are having, like, big meetings, or big discussions. So the environment, the place, the time, all of this really, really matters a lot. It is not only about words. It is not only about, the right attitude. Maybe I can have the right attitude, but if I'm giving a feedback in front of, 10 different people, or in front of a new crowd, then the opposite person is not going to like. So it's an amalgamation of all these factors, which leads us to giving the right type of, constructive feedback. Okay, great. So before we do the Q&A, let us quickly go through one more poll. It's an interesting one. Okay. So how did you react when you received the criticism last time? Okay, guys, be honest. Okay, your names are anyways not going to be splashed over here. So okay, oh, direct 100%. Okay, appreciated the person. So far, appreciated the person for the feedback. That's 64%. I I hope that's the right answer that everyone is giving. So yeah, we don't have to be good, when we are giving the answer. We just need to be true. So I hope everyone is giving the true answer. Because for me, when it was new, I was not so good at reacting to criticism. I used to feel a bit taken away. Okay, cool. So I see maximum, okay, suppressed initial reaction is 20%. Recall the benefits of getting feedback is 20%. Reacted badly when the person who gave you feedback is 7%. Okay, I think, thank you. At least we have 7% of people who are really true about this emotion of feeling bad. Appreciated the person for the feedback, great, 67%, that's the right way to do it. Requested a follow-up feedback, very good, 40%. Okay, good, very different reactions to criticism, that's good. Okay. Great. So I think before we go on to the QA session, I hope Q&A session, I hope there is a lot of takeaway from from this webinar. Again, as I said, my whole intention of thinking about this topic is not only to provide insights of constructive criticism in your professional life, but also in your personal life. Because personally, I feel that criticism is a part of our life. It's like a part and parcel, whether it's as I said, whether it's professional, whether it's personal, whether it's at our house, whether it's with our family, with our colleagues. You always find people who will give us feedback, or you'll always find yourself giving feedback to others. It's a very human, it's a very human psychology. So that is the reason I thought of this topic, because this is something that is always going to happen to us, and we are going to do it to others. So it is important for us to understand what is the right way to do it and what is the right way to perceive it. Because if we understand this, then it is going to help us in our professional lives as well as in our personal lives, in any kind of scenario, in any kind of situation, whether it's a relationship, or it can be anything. So that is the reason I chose this topic. It's a very, very, very dynamic topic, can be actually executed, anywhere, in any kind of situation, at any age, because this is always going to be a part of your life. So I hope all of you have really taken a lot of takeaways from this. I hope all of you will actually execute and implement constructive criticism. I hope all of you will be very thoughtful and careful when you're on the receiving side, and understand the difference between being reactive and to respond. So I would request, or I would really request all of you to please think over this. Maybe you can go through the webinar again and see how you can implement this in your personal life, how you can be a better listener, or how you can be a better criticism giver, or how you can be a better criticism taker. I think if you master this art, then it is definitely going to help you a lot in your personal as well as your professional life. So yeah, I think that comes to an end to this webinar. Definitely we'll have a Q&A section. But yeah, that's it. That's what I wanted to share with all of you. So thank you, and thanks a lot. Yeah, now we can start the Q&A section. Let's have some questions. Okay. So, okay, Valentino has asked a very good question, though it's not very much relevant to the topic. So the question is, when criticizing products of big businesses like Amazon, Zomato, they don't reply to our comments unless it is very negative comment we send to them. How can we apply positive criticism when we have received a bad product? I think in this case, Rather than providing positive criticism, it is about letting them know what is the fact. I think that is it all varies upon case to case and upon situation to situation. So rather than being positive, it is here in this case, it is important that you let them know what is the fact, what is the problem, what is the issue. We are not here to criticize them or put them on the spot or try to be more arrogant to them, but put to them the exact problem and put to them the exact emotions that we are going through and ask for an action. I think that's the best we can do, rather than being or providing any kind of a criticism. It is more about telling them the actual problem and moreover asking them for the action items. I think actions are very important. We can keep on complaining, we can keep on sending messages, but it is important that we ask for the right action from them. I hope that answered your question. But yeah, I think a very good question, Valentino. Very, very relatable, because we all go through this. Sometimes Zomato, sometimes Swiggy. They delay. So again, good question. Okay. Okay. Good. So Deepali has asked a question: how to recognize if a criticism is constructive or not? Okay. Great. So I think as I had mentioned, the ethos of constructive criticism is compassion, and I think we are all matured enough that whenever we are talking to the opposite person, based on the tone, based on what kind of feedback that opposite person is giving you, you definitely come to know what is the intention. Is the intention negative? Is the intention positive? Is the opposite person just complaining about me? Is he just asking me questions? Why did you do this wrong? Why are you late? Why are you not doing this, that? So when these kind of questions come to you, those whys, and and when someone is trying to put you on the spot and trying to blame you for things, then definitely we know that no, this is not constructive, this is destructive. But at the same time, when we see that the opposite person is not really interested in why you have done things wrong, but he is interested more in how can you do things right in the future. He's interested in more giving you positive feedback, in giving you improvement areas, in being a part of your team, helping you to to understand the problems and putting forward a set of action items. Then definitely we understand that no, this the entire temperament or the mindset of the opposite person is very different, right? He's trying to help me out. He's not trying to put me on the spot. So I think once we go through all of these emotions, that's where we definitely come to know which way the criticism is going. Is it constructive or is it destructive? So I hope that answered your question, Dipali. Hmm. Okay, I think a very good point made by Hari Shankar. The session made most of us to be leaders instead of being boss if we follow the objective of session. I think very, very, I think a very good takeaway. Very good takeaway. There is a lot of difference between being a boss and being a leader. If you're a boss, let's say if I'm a boss, I can be destructive, right? Because I just want things to be done. I can just throw orders like, hey, do this, do that. I want the delivery. This is the deadline. I don't care. That's how maybe a boss would do, because he just wants the results. He doesn't care how the results are generated, or he doesn't care the process to get those results. That's more of a boss. And if you are a leader, then yes, you are also interested in the process. You are not only thinking about the deliverable or the deadline, but you're also thinking about how are we going to reach to that deadline. Okay, how as a team we are all going to be a part of a team and make that deadline achievable. That's where a leader comes into picture, and that's where you will be providing positive feedback. Because even in a project, mm, I have rarely seen projects which are, to be very honest, which are always on time. There are going to be delays. There are thousand, I think millions of factors which can delay a project. Any number of things that can delay a project. But yeah, if you're a boss, then you are going to throw that anger that why there is a delay. But if you're a leader, you will understand. You will talk to the opposite person. You will give feedback. You will give those action items, and then ensure that as a team, we reach out to that deadline. So yeah, I think a very good comment, Harishankar. I mean, the difference between a boss and a leader, and how constructive criticism can help you to become a leader. Okay, good question again by Valentino. I'll just read out the question. In a worst case scenario, there are meetings where some clients may get very aggressive and furious that it becomes tough to stay calm and take things positively. Is there any way we can deal with this situation using positive criticism? Post that meeting, should we criticize the client using positive criticism for their behavior they showed to avoid any such future scenarios? Okay, good question. I think it's a very real scenario based question. So I think, yeah, first and foremost, as I mentioned, most important is don't react. That's where I think generally, we all fail, because it's like, if you tell me something, I'm not going to just sleep. I am going to reply back to you. If you give me two, I'll give you four. That's a typical mindset that generally people have, because we don't want to be on the receiving side, right? If you insult me once, I'm going to insult you twice. But that's not the way it has to be. So I think in these kind of scenarios, the first thing is, don't react. It's okay if the client is aggressive. There has to be some reason for any aggression, right? Aggression will not just come all of a sudden. There will be some reason. Something might have gone wrong, maybe a delay, or maybe we have not done things right, or it can be anything. So I think the first thing is, don't react. Let him be aggressive. I mean, it's okay. It's a 1 hour, 2 hours meeting. He will be aggressive, and then finally he is going to go and sleep. Let him be aggressive. Just hear it out. Just understand why is he being so aggressive, and then respond to him. So the right way would be, then you can have a one-to-one with him, and be very open and be very honest, and ask him, right? Why were you so aggressive? What went wrong? Where do you feel that you can help us, so that we don't commit the same mistakes again? So I think, rather than being opposite to each other, that why you, why me, and all, hear it out, then respond later, and just be a part of the team. Don't be opposite to him. Be a part of his own team, and understand why is he angry, and then find out the solution. So I mean, it's more about reacting versus responding. Okay. uh, Ajay has asked one question. In some cases, even after providing constructive criticism, the member is not understanding. So, how to handle the situation? Yeah, I think that's a very relatable question. Uh, so, I think many a times, and even in my career, I have seen that a lot of times, I have been providing constructive criticism. I have been trying to be very positive with the opposite person, but somehow the opposite person is just not able to understand it. It happens a lot of times. No matter how much effort I put, sometimes I feel that this guy just doesn't get it. I'm putting in so much, so much effort. I'm trying to put in so much time, but he is just not understanding. So yes, that can happen. Now, again, I think the principle of reaction versus response, that comes into picture. Don't react. Don't get angry. Everyone has a different mindset. Everyone has a different ability to understand, to grasp, to do things. Right? We all are different. Maybe there might be something going wrong. Maybe if I'm telling that opposite person 10 times, but still he's not improving, that means there's something wrong in his mindset. It is not about one or two instances. That person is just thinking in a very different way. So in such cases, I would do a lot of counseling. I would have a lot of one-to-one with that person. I would not give it up. There is something wrong. It's not about that person. It is about it is about his mindset and his behavior, his thought process. So that's where I will focus and not get too much bogged down that why is the opposite person not understanding, or why is he behaving in a certain way. I would also recommend such people. There are many courses available, like on Udemy, on like Coursera. So I would also recommend courses to such people. They can go through courses, and they can try to change their behavior, like change their mindset. But yeah, all in all, I think I would not let go of that. I would not be reactive, and I would just think that it's not the person with whom I'm dealing. It's a mindset with whom I'm dealing, and I have to change that mindset. That would be my approach. Okay. Okay, so there is a question. Okay, there's a question from I think Valentino. Last question from me. Mr. ABC wants to get positive criticism for his colleagues from his colleagues to improve himself. However, because of his excellent relationship with his colleagues, they refuse to criticize anything. So in that case, how should Mr. ABC ask people for criticism when he needs? Wow. Okay, good. I think Valentino was all prepared, with his questions even before the webinar. They are like very situational based questions. Good. It feels like I'm giving an interview right now. So yeah, I think see, no matter how excellent a relationship is, most important part is you need to be true to each other, right? I mean, being excellent can also be fake in a lot of ways, right? It's like I share a very good rapport with my client, or I have an excellent relationship with my with my team members. But then bottom down the line, it can also happen that I am not really happy with them. I just have a good excellent relationship because they have delivered on time, but somewhere bottom down the line, I'm not happy with their behavior, or with their approach. Even that can happen. So if you ask me, more than being excellent or having a good rapport, I think most important is being true. And when we are being true, that's the time we expect a true feedback from the opposite person. In today's complex environment, I don't think so there will be any case wherein there is no feedback and everything is happening good. I don't think that can ever happen, right? I mean, it's not about good and bad, but the environment itself is so complex. There are so many things involved, right? Not everyone can be happy at the same time, right? Sometimes things go here and there, and there are many things that happen. So I think as long as you are true to that opposite person, and in your and there is a lot of truth in your relationship, I think there is no harm talking to the opposite person, and the opposite person should also be true to you in providing the feedback, rather than thinking that this guy is so good to me, because then that goodness will not help if you are not being true to each other. So I think that is very important. Okay. Okay, I can see more questions, but that are kind of correlated. Mm. Okay, so Valentino is saying, thanks, Anish, for answering that. By the way, the questions were quite spontaneous. Okay, good. This session is quite helpful in firing the neurons. Okay, nice. Okay, any more? Let me take up one more question. Any more questions from anyone? I can see only Valentino asking questions. Any questions? Okay, I think we are good. Okay, great, guys. You guys were a
Yes,
great audience.
Anish, I
Um,
think you missed out one question. Srinivas
sure.
asked a question if you scroll up. last question he asked.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Srinivas. I think I missed this. Thank you. Whole session is really informative. Sometimes, even if we provide feedback in positive way, if other person is not in a situation to understand, if it takes it negative, how can we deal with such kind of scenario? Okay, great. So this happens all the time, right? Not only in professional life, in personal life also it happens. It's like, but I'm talking to you with a positive mindset, but you are taking it in a negative mindset, and all this all generally happens in all kinds of environment. So I think, see, this is all about playing, or like it's all about the mindset. I think it's all about how the opposite person is perceiving something that's been told by you. So if I were in your place, let's say, and if the opposite person is still taking me negative, then I would not change my stance, right? Because whatever feedback I have to give in a positive way, that doesn't change because the opposite person is not understanding. Maybe I will change my, maybe I'll change my style, or maybe I will change the way I'm trying to convey that message to the person. But underlining, the entire thought process of what I want to convey, that will still remain the same, whether that person is taking it in a negative way or in a positive way. We should not dilute, the importance of the message. We can always change the medium in which a message is given so that the opposite person understands. But the context of the message should remain as it is, even if the person is taking it in a negative way or whatever way he wants to take it. The truth still remains the same. The feedback, the action item still remains the same. As I said, the mode, the medium can change. Great. Okay, I think I have covered all the questions. Thank you very much, everyone, once again, for taking out time and being part of this webinar. And as I said, a wonderful topic, and I hope there is a lot of takeaways from this session, and I hope we all execute and implement constructive criticism in our personal lives as well as in our professional lives. So yeah, once again, thank you very much. And yeah, over to you, Avinash.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Anish, for such a wonderful session and, giving us your valuable time and, highlighting on such an overlooked topic. And thank you all of you for joining us today. And so just, I have a small request to make before you leave. I put down a feedback form over there. So you can just take out 5 minutes of your time and fill up the feedback form and, let us know that where we have done good, how we have helped you and, where we can actually improve. So thank you all for joining us today, and good night, and have a great time. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good night.